Hello everyone, and welcome back to Introduction to Programming with Python. Today we're going to be introducing Booleans, and we're going to be also diving into if statements. So what is a Boolean? Well, a Boolean is simply either true or false, and so we can have a variable here and define it with a Boolean. So this variable myBool is holding the Boolean true, and I could do the same thing with false right here. And so the reason that these exist is because within Python, Python allows you to actually implement certain conditions within the script. And so what I mean by that is, for example, 1 is greater than 2, right? This is a false statement right here. This is a false condition. And so within Python, this is going to yield a Boolean of either true or false. So let's say I want to print this. Print 1 is greater than 2. Let's run it. And we get false right here. So these conditions, we can do a few different things with them. So there's different operators that we can use to actually produce conditions. So as we just saw right there, we can either use the greater than sign, the less than sign. There's also the double equal sign. This says whether something is equal to something else. So like, if 1 is equal to 1, like that. The reason we don't just do this is because the single equal sign is used when assigning variables to a value. And so we can't have that for both things. So when comparing two values like this, we just use the double equal sign like that. Now there's also the not equal sign, just like this. So it's like if 1 is not equal to 2, that statement is true. Right? And so additionally, we also have the AND keyword and the OR keyword. And so I'll write out an example. Print if 1 is equal to 1 and 2 is greater than, I'll do if 3 is greater than 2. And if we run this, we get true. That's because 1 is equal to 1 and 3 is greater than 2. Let's say I did OR here. If we run this, it's still true. Okay, so let's say I do 3 is less than 2. We get true because in order to meet the condition here, one of these two parts has to be true. Either this is true or that is true. And so we get true right there. But if we were to do AND here, this is going to produce false because 1 equals 1 and 3 is less than 2 is not correct. And so these have a lot of use cases, especially when introducing if statements. And so what if statements allow us to do now is to actually create a script where more than one path is possible to occur depending on a certain condition. So let's say, before I forget, we can also apply these conditions to strings. So let's say I wanted to print something like the string hi is equal to another string named hi. This should print true. And if I did something like, bye, this is obviously going to be false because this is not equal to that. So we can also do this with strings as well. Now, introducing if statements, what these allow us to do within programming is execute certain pieces of code based on a condition. And now the way you set up if statements within Python specifically is with the keyword if. And now here is where a certain condition is going to go. And so before I do this, let me just create a variable called age. And for now, we can just set this equal to 20. Now we can come down here and say if age is, let's say, greater than or equal to 18, 18, and then at the end of the statement you place a semicolon, and then when you enter you automatically indent over, and here we can say print you're an adult now. And so what this code here does is if this condition is true, run this block of code. And the way that the block of code under the if statement runs is it has to be indented over like this and under. So if I did something here, it would not be under the if statement and it would just go on its own. But in the case of this code that's under the if statement, this will only execute if this condition is true. And so let's try and run this. And we get down here, you're an adult now. So because age is greater than 18, this condition was met, therefore this code was activated. So now let's change this age variable to, let's say, 17. Let's run things now. Aha, notice that this print statement did not activate. That's because this condition was not met. So if you break down the components of an if statement, you have the if keyword, and then you have the condition that needs to be met, followed by a semicolon, and then under it and indented over, we have the code that's supposed to execute. Now we can build off of this and introduce something called else right here. And so now else is basically saying, okay, if this condition wasn't met, anything else goes. So, okay, age is not greater than or equal to 17. Okay, anything else, activate the code that goes under here. So here we can just print, you're still young. Okay, so let's run this now. And we get you're still young. So because this condition wasn't met, this code ran because according to the else statement, any other condition that that exists besides this, let it run this piece of code. We can take it a step further and add the Alif keyword. And so let's say Alif age is less than 10. We'll print wow, you're young. Just like that. And what this does is, so up here we have if this condition is true, print this. Okay, or if this condition is true, then print this. And then, okay, if these both are not met and there's any other condition out there, run this piece of code. So anything else besides these two conditions, run this piece of code. So let's try and run this, and we get you're an adult now. So let's change this age variable to let's say 6, and let's run it, and now we get wow, you're young, right? Because now this condition was met right here. And so those are the basics of if statements. It's possible to even have if statements within if statements. That's called nested programming. We can get into that later on. But for now, thanks for watching.